Thalia, 31. For 13 years, I'd lived a lie. My father, Keith, and brother, Garrett, had successfully erased me for wanting to build houses, not sell them. I was an inconvenient ghost, or so I thought. Then, in the sterile Nashville law offices of Foster and Whitfield, a place I wasn't invited to, everything shattered. My grandfather Harold's attorney slid a sealed, yellowed envelope to me. Inside, a phone number and 4 words: "Call Frank. He has your key." The subsequent call, on speaker, revealed me as the sole successor of a $42 million company Harold built in secret. The entire family's betrayal crumbled in less than 5 minutes. My father, Keith, sat there, his jaw tight, utterly oblivious until that moment to the colossal secret his own father had kept, believing his control over me was absolute. Before I tell you what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story resonates with you, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. The day my grandfather died, and my phone rang from a number I hadn't seen in 3 years. The call comes at 5:30 a.m. I'm already up reviewing renovation blueprints at the Ridgeline shop in Clarksville. My phone buzzes. Unknown number. I almost let it ring. Then I pick up. "Thalia, it's Aunt June. Your grandfather passed last night." I set down my pencil. The shop is quiet. Just the hum of the space heater and the smell of joint compound. Reading of the will is Wednesday in Nashville. June says, "Foster and Whitfield. Your father didn't include you on the guest list." She pauses. "But I thought you should know." I hang up and look at the only photograph on my shop wall. Harold Weston and me, age 16, pouring a concrete foundation together. His hand on my shoulder, both of us grinning. My father, Keith Weston, CEO of Weston Realty, the biggest residential brokerage in Montgomery County, declared I was no longer his daughter when I was 18. He did it at the company's annual holiday party in front of 30 clients and every employee on his payroll. My crime? I told him I didn't want to sell houses. I wanted to build them. I enlisted in the Army the next morning. Keith erased me from the family photos, the holiday card, the will. My brother Garrett made sure I stayed erased. He controlled Grandpa Harold's phone, filtered his visitors, told the family Harold didn't want to see Thalia. That was a lie. Harold sent me 47 handwritten letters over 13 years. The first one to my barracks at Fort Campbell the week I shipped out. After I came home, we met every month at a diner outside town. Nobody in the family knew. I call Aunt June back. "You said I wasn't invited." "That's right. I'm coming anyway." Silence. Then, good. 3 months earlier, the Dixie Grill, a cinder block diner on Highway 41 south of Clarksville. Harold and I have been meeting here on the second Saturday of every month since 2018. Same booth, same order. Catfish sandwich, extra pickles, sweet tea. The waitress knows us by name. Harold is 84, thinner than last time. His hands shake when he lifts his glass, but his eyes are sharp. The same blue-gray that used to skin a construction site and find the one stud that wasn't plumb. "Still building for people?" he asks. 6 employees now, I say. "Expanding into roof work next quarter." He nods slow. "Good. You understand what it means to work with your hands." Garrett never did. He sets down his tea, leans forward. The diner noise fades. "I'm changing some things, Thalia. When I'm gone, someone will reach out to you. A man named Frank. Trust him." "What kind of things?" He shakes his head. "Not yet. I just need you to know I never agreed with your father. And I never forgot you. Not for one day." He reaches across the table and squeezes my wrist. His grip is still strong. Weaker than a decade ago, but still the grip of a man who poured his first foundation at 22. I drive back to Clarksville after. In the rearview mirror, Harold is standing outside the diner, one hand raised. He looks smaller against the sky than I've ever seen him. That was 3 months ago. He never mentioned Frank again. I never asked. I should have asked. Wednesday, Nashville. The offices of Foster and Whitfield sit on a tree-lined block in Green Hills. Limestone facade, brass fittings, the kind of law firm that smells like old money and floor wax. I park my F-150 between Garrett's BMW and Keith's Mercedes. My truck has a dent in the tailgate from a sheet of drywall that slipped last Tuesday. It looks exactly like it should. A working vehicle in a parking lot full of performance. I'm wearing a clean flannel, dark jeans, and work boots I polished this morning.
No blazer, no pearls.
The receptionist scans her screen.
I'm sorry.
Your name isn't on the list. Thalia Weston? Harold's granddaughter. I see, but I don't need to be on a list. I need to be in that room. She picks up the phone, murmurs to someone, and waves me through. I push open the conference room door. 8 heads turn. Keith is at the far end of the table, hands folded.
His jaw tightens when he sees me.
Garrett, beside him, tilts his head and smiles the way you smile at a dog that wandered into a restaurant. Leanne, my stepmother, Keith's second wife, puts her hand on his arm. Who invited you?
Keith says.
Not a question, a challenge. Nobody. I say. But Harold was my grandfather, and I have every right to be here. Thomas Foster, the estate attorney, adjusts his glasses. He looks at Keith, then at me. Ms. Weston is referenced in the will. She's entitled to attend. Keith's face doesn't change, but his hands press harder against the table.
Fine, he says.
Sit down. I pull out the last empty chair.
Seat.
Fold my arms. Foster opens the folder. Foster reads with the flat precision of a man who's done this 1,000 times. Keith receives the Bellmead estate, a 5-bedroom colonial on 2 acres and $900,000 in cash. He nods once, like a man accepting a receipt. Garrett gets operational control of Weston Realty and $700,000 plus an investment portfolio. He writes something in his phone before Foster finishes the sentence. Leanne, $300,000 and the Lexus. She dabs her eye with a tissue that was already in her hand. Education trusts for younger cousins, $150,000 each. Nobody argues. Everyone expected roughly this. Foster turns to the last page. And to Thalia Marie Weston. Every head swivels. One sealed envelope to be delivered directly and opened only by the named recipient. He slides it across the table. Yellowed paper, soft edges, my name in Harold's block printing. The same careful hand that labeled every tool in his workshop. I open it. A single sheet. A 10-digit phone number. Below it, one line. Call Frank. He has your key. HW. No check. No property. No account number. Garrett leans over and catches a glimpse. His laugh starts in his chest and comes out loud. A phone number? Seriously? He looks around the table, inviting the audience.
Must be a homeless hotline.
Fits the lifestyle. Keith doesn't laugh, but he doesn't defend me either. He looks at the table. Leanne shakes her head. At least she was mentioned. That's more than I expected. A cousin chuckles. Aunt June, sitting near the window, doesn't. She watches me the way Harold used to. Steady. Patient. Waiting to see what I'll do.
Foster looks at me.
Ms. Weston. The envelope falls outside the scope of the will. Outside the scope? I hold that phrase like a loaded round. I don't stand up. I don't excuse myself. I pull my phone from my pocket, set it flat on the mahogany table, and start dialing. Garrett stops laughing. What are you doing? Calling the number. You wanted to know what it is. Let's all find out together.
Toppspøker.
The sound fills the conference room. Each ring bouncing off the wood paneling and the portraits of dead partners on the wall. 1 ring.
2.
Keith uncrosses his arms. Leanne's tissue freezes mid-dab. 3 rings. Then a voice.
Deep.
Unhurried. Tennessee gravel.
Thalia.
I'm Frank Harlan. Your grandfather told me this day would come. The room stops. Every sound. The AC. The traffic outside. Garrett's breathing goes flat. Frank continues, I'm holding all documentation for Weston Holdings LLC, a company Harold established in 2014. You are the sole successor managing member under the operating agreement. Current estimated asset value, approximately $42 million. Nobody moves. The number hangs in the air like smoke. Garrett sets his whiskey glass down so slowly, it doesn't make a sound. His hand is shaking. Keith stares at the phone as though it just spoke a language he doesn't recognize. Leanne's mouth opens. Nothing comes out. Foster removes his glasses. Aunt June closes her eyes and almost smiles. Thank you, Frank. I say. I'll come see you tomorrow morning. I end the call, pick up my phone, look around the table. Every face I've seen in the last 13 years, the ones that erased me, mocked me, forgot me on purpose, is staring back at me with the same expression. Anyone else want to joke about the homeless hotline? Silence. Keith stands, slowly. His voice cracks on the first word. What is this? That's the first time I've ever heard my father's voice break. I need to stop here, because this is the moment I'd waited for since I was 18 years old. Not the money. The look on their faces when they realized they'd been wrong about me for 13 years. If you've ever been told you're nothing by the people who are supposed to have your back, you know this feeling. Subscribe if you want to see what happened next. And tell me, would you have called on speakerphone or walked out first? Garrett is the first to detonate. He's on his feet, finger pointed at me like a weapon. This is fraud. He had no right to create a separate company. Everything he owned is part of this estate. Foster holds up both hands. I need to verify, but if the LLC was properly formed and its assets are separate from Harold's personal estate, it does not pass through probate. Keith turns on Foster. You knew about this LLC? I did not. Harold used independent counsel for the entity. My office managed only the will. Garrett paces behind his chair. 42 million. Weston Realty is worth 15, maybe 18. You're telling me my grandfather siphoned money into a shell company for her? It wasn't siphoned, I say. My voice is level. Flat. The tone I learned calling in medevac coordinates under fire. Give the facts. Skip the feelings. Harold built Weston Holdings with personal capital, land acquisitions, commercial real estate development, entirely separate from Weston Realty. And you knew about this? Keith's voice has a new edge. Thin. Dangerous. I found out 3 minutes ago. Same time as everyone else. Leanne grabs Keith's sleeve. Keith, calm down. He pulls away. Be quiet. The room flinches. That's Keith Weston. Controlled in public, volcanic in private. The mask just slipped. Foster speaks carefully. I strongly advise against any action until the LLC documentation is reviewed. If the entity is valid, this is not a probate matter. Garrett stares at me. His jaw works. He's calculating. I can see it. The Vanderbilt MBA running scenarios behind his eyes. But the math doesn't add up for him, and he knows it. This isn't over, he says. I pick up Harold's envelope and tuck it into my jacket. No, I agree. It's just starting. The parking lot is bright and quiet. Nashville heat rising off asphalt. I'm unlocking my truck when Keith appears behind me, Garrett flanking him like a lieutenant. Keith puts his hand flat on my door, blocking it. We're face to face for the first time in 13 years without a table between us. He's aged. The hair is thinner, the jaw softer, but the eyes are the same. The look of a man who believes authority is a birthright. You're not taking a cent from this family, he says. My father was manipulated at the end of his life, and you were the one doing it. I'm the one who manipulated him? I hold his gaze. You're the one who banned your daughter from seeing her own grandfather. You're the one who told 30 people at a Christmas party that I wasn't your child anymore because I said no to you. Once. At 18. Keith pulls his hand off the door. Not because he's retreating, because the words landed somewhere he didn't expect. Garrett steps forward. Listen, Thalia. If the LLC is real, we handle it in the family. No outsiders, no lawyers. We sit down and figure this out. I look at my brother, 3 years older, MBA, tailored suit, manicured hands that haven't held a hammer since he was 12. You don't want outsiders because you're afraid of what they'll find, Garrett. His face changes. Just a flicker. But I catch it. The same flinch I've seen in soldiers who hear a round crack, too close. Don't snort, pretend you know anything about goodnight. I get in the truck, close the door, start the engine. In the side mirror, I watch Keith and Garrett standing in the empty lot, not speaking, not moving. I don't know what Harold left in that USB drive yet, but I know my brother is scared of something, and scared people make mistakes. My apartment in Clarksville is 600 square feet, clean, spare, military habit. Everything has a place, nothing extra. I keep a tin box under my bed. It's olive drab, dented on one corner, the kind the Army issues for personal effects. Inside, 47 letters, every one from Harold. The first arrived at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, the week I started basic. Block letters on lined paper. Thalia, your father is wrong. I'm proud of you. I'll write every month.
HW.
And he did. Every single month for 13 years. Through basic training, advanced medic school, 2 deployments to Kandahar province, the Bronze Star ceremony he watched on a live stream from his workshop, my discharge, my first renovation job, my first employee hire. 47 letters. Some were short, a paragraph about the weather and the catfish at Dixie Grill. Some were long, pages about the early days of Western properties, how he poured his first foundation at 22 with borrowed money and a pickup truck not much different from mine. I pull out the last one sent 2 months before he died. The handwriting is shakier. The words are not. Thalia, I don't have long, but I want you to know I built something for you. Frank has everything. Trust him. You're the only one in this family who never took a thing from me and still showed up every month. That's why you get what I made. You're the one most like me.
HW.
I hold the letter against my chest. My hands are shaking. Not the way they shook in Afghanistan. Not adrenaline. This is 13 years of missing someone compressed into a single page. I let myself cry. First time since Kandahar. Then I set the letter down. Wipe my face. Text Frank Harlan. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Show me everything. Frank Harlan's office is a double-wide trailer on a gravel lot outside Clarksville. No receptionist, no waiting room. Just a metal desk, a filing cabinet, and a framed photograph on the wall. Frank and Harold standing in front of a half-framed house in 1986. Both covered in sawdust. Both grinning like they'd just invented something. Frank is 69, built like a fence post. Lean, weathered, hands that look like they were carved from hickory. He was Harold's construction foreman for 22 years before Garrett pushed the old crew out of Weston Realty. Harold set up Weston Holdings LLC in 2014. Frank says, laying papers across the desk. Used his own capital. Money he'd kept separate from Weston Realty for decades. Personal savings, early land investments, a few commercial deals he ran on the side. No company funds, no overlap. The operating agreement is 12 pages. My name appears on page 3. Thalia Marie Weston, successor managing member.
Harold's signature.
Frank's as witness. Notarized. When Harold passes, ownership transfers to you automatically under the succession clause. No probate, no court. It's a business contract, not a will. Why not just put me in the will? Because Keith would have challenged it. He can contest a will. He can't contest a business contract he wasn't party to. Harold thought 3 moves ahead. I turned to the asset summary. 12 commercial properties across 4 Tennessee counties, 340 acres of development land, investment portfolio, total estimated value, $42 million. I set the papers down. I set the papers breathe. Frank reaches into his desk drawer and pulls out a USB drive, plain black, no label. Harold asked me to hold this. Said if Garrett ever caused trouble for you, you'd need it. He slides it across the desk. I don't know what's on it. Harold just said you'd understand when the time came. Back at my apartment, laptop open on the kitchen table, I plug in the USB. 1 folder, label, Garrett. Inside, 3 years of expense reports from Weston Realty, 2022, 2023, 2024. Harold highlighted the discrepancies in yellow. Dinners that didn't happen, travel that wasn't taken. Vendor invoices from companies that don't appear in any Tennessee business registry. The total, $340,000 skimmed through inflated expenses over 36 months. Harold tracked every dollar, every line item, every fake receipt. Attached to the files is a scanned memo in Harold's handwriting. Garrett has been taking from the company since 2022. I haven't told Keith. Keith will protect him. If Garrett blocks Thalia's path, she can use this. Not for threats, for negotiation. Harold saw what Garrett was doing, and instead of blowing it up, he filed it away like ammunition in a locked cabinet, ready for the person he trusted to use it right. I close the laptop and sit in the dark. My phone buzzes. Garrett's name on the screen. I hired a litigation team, he says. His voice is tight, over-rehearsed. We're going to challenge the LLC. Harold was 84. History of cognitive decline. We'll have it voided. He was 73 when he formed it, Garrett. Sharp enough to build a $42 million portfolio without anyone in the family noticing. Silence. And Garrett, be very careful about what you dig up, because I can dig, too. The line goes dead. I look at the laptop. The folder labeled Garrett glows against the black screen. Harold gave me a grenade. The question is whether I pull the pin or set it on the table and let my brother stare at it. Aunt June calls at 9 o'clock that night. They're meeting at Keith's house right now. You're not invited.
Surprise.
What are they planning? Keith wants to spend $100,000 on a law firm, Hamilton and Ross, to challenge the LLC on diminished capacity grounds. Garrett's building a timeline of Harold's supposed cognitive decline, and Leanne was influenced by Thalia during private visits. I lean against the kitchen wall. The radiator ticks. They're saying I brainwashed him. That's the narrative. Garrett's the one pushing hardest. He told everyone you don't have money for a real lawyer and that you'd fold under legal pressure. His exact words were, "She fixes roofs. She doesn't understand litigation." I almost laugh. I've been underestimated by people pointing rifles at me. A man in a Brooks Brothers suit isn't going to rattle me. June, thank you for calling for all of it. Harold asked me to watch out for you. I'm keeping my promise. After we hang up, I open my laptop again. The Garrett folder. $340,000. Capacity evaluations. I'll need those. Harold mentioned A in one of his letters. I pull up the letter from 2022. Had my checkup with Dr. Susan Park yesterday. She says I'm sharper than most 60-year-olds. Told her that's because I don't sit behind a desk. I text Frank. Did Harold get formal capacity evaluations? Reply comes in 2 minutes. 2014 and 2022.
Dr. Park.
Both clean. Harold prepaid a retainer with Sandra Reeves at Carlton and Reeves, Nashville. For you. She's expecting your call. Harold thought 3 moves ahead. Every single time. I pick up the phone and dial Sandra Reeves. Ms. Weston. She says. I've been waiting for you. Sandra Reeves is 52, partner at Carlton and Reeves, and she does not waste words. Her office is on Music Row. Glass desk, 2 chairs, no art on the walls. She runs things lean. Harold retained me 2 years ago, she says, flipping through the operating agreement. Paid the full retainer up front. Told me his granddaughter would need corporate counsel when the time came. She reads for 3 minutes straight without speaking. Then she looks up. This is airtight. Harold used Richard Morrow, one of the best LLC attorneys in the state. Successor member clause is unambiguous. The entity is properly formed, separately funded, and has its own tax history. Keith snorts, can't challenge this through probate because it's not part of the estate. What about the capacity argument? Harold completed 2 independent cognitive evaluations. 2014 and 2022. Dr. Susan Park, board-certified neuropsychologist, no family connection. Both evaluations are clean. If Garrett argues diminished capacity, these documents will end the case in preliminary hearing. She picks up the USB drive. I brought it in a sealed envelope. She plugs it in, reads for 5 minutes. $340,000 in falsified expenses. This is embezzlement. I know. If Garrett challenges your LLC, you can countersue. Or you can use this as leverage in private negotiation. Both are legal. I don't want to send my brother to prison. Then use it as a seat at the table. If he backs down, you hold the file. If he pushes, you push back harder. I want to meet the whole family. Saturday, Harold's house. I'll finish this myself. Sandra raises an eyebrow. Without me? Without anyone. This is between me and them. But I want you on speed dial if it goes sideways. She nods. Harold said you'd handle it this way. Thursday night. Garrett calls. His voice has shifted. Colder. More rehearsed. He's been coached. I want you to understand something, Thalia. If we take this to court, you'll be sitting across from Hamilton and Ross. 15 attorneys, a forensic accounting team, expert witnesses on cognitive decline. He pauses for effect. You run a renovation crew. You don't have the resources for this fight. What I have, I say, is a Bronze Star, 2 tours in Afghanistan, a small business I built from a truck and a tool belt, and the documented fact that I was the only person in this family who visited Harold every single month for 13 years while you controlled his phone to keep me away. The line is so quiet, I can hear his air conditioner running. He pivots. Softer now. The negotiation voice. The one he uses on clients.
Look.
We're family. Let's split the LLC 50/50ths. You take half, we take half.
Fair.
You want to talk to me about fair? You, the person who blocked Grandpa's number on my phone, who told him I didn't want to visit when I was calling every week. You can't prove you sure about that, Garrett? Silence. Long enough to hear a clock tick. I've negotiated under mortar fire, I tell him. You're going to have to do better than a phone call. I hang up. Set the phone down. My hands are steady. I learned a long time ago that the people who yell the loudest are usually the ones with the weakest position. Garrett isn't loud anymore. He's calculating, but he's calculating from a losing hand. And somewhere behind that Vanderbilt polish, he's starting to realize it. Friday evening, 8 o'clock. I'm reviewing Holdings property files at my kitchen table when someone knocks. I check the peephole. Keith Weston alone.
No Garrett, no Leanne.
I open the door. He steps in without being invited. Habit of a man who's owned every room he's walked into for 30 years. His eyes sweep my apartment. The small kitchen, the papers on the table, the single photograph of Harold on the wall above the couch. He stares at the photograph. His jaw tightens. My father didn't know what he was doing when he set up that LLC, he says. He was 73. He was vulnerable. He was 73 and building a $42 million company without any of you noticing. That's not vulnerability. That's precision. Keith turns to face me. You abandoned this family. You joined the army. You walked away from everything I built. I walked away from you because you told me my only value was sitting behind a desk in your office and doing what I was told. And when I said no, you erased me. He takes a half step back. Not from fear. From impact. If you respect this family, he says, quieter now, you'll share what he left you. If you respected your daughter, you wouldn't have needed 13 years and a dead father to stand in her kitchen. The words land like a slap. He can't return. He's silent for 10 seconds. Then, he walks to the door. Doesn't slam it. Closes it gently. The way a man closes something he knows he can't open again. I stand in my kitchen alone. The photograph of Harold watches from the wall. I text Sandra Reeves. Saturday. Harold's house. 2 o'clock. I'm ending this. Saturday morning. The family group chat I was never added to. June screenshots it for me. Garrett has been busy. He filed the challenge with Hamilton and Ross. $50,000 upfront. Another 50 committed from Keith's inheritance. His message to the family, we will prove Harold lacked cognitive capacity when the LLC was formed in 2014. Thalia manipulated a vulnerable elderly man during unsupervised private visits. We will have the entity dissolved. Leanne adds her contribution. Harold loved this entire family. He wouldn't have wanted division. Thalia is tearing apart what he built. I read it in my truck, parked outside Frank's trailer. I could feel angry. Instead, I feel clear. This is what combat training does. When the stakes get high enough, the noise drops out and all you see is the next move. I call Sandra Reeves. Bring copies of both capacity evaluations to the house this afternoon and the USB drive. I'm hoping I won't need it, but if Garrett steps over the line, I will. Harold had Dr. Park do 2 full neuropsychological evaluations. Both are thorough. Garrett's capacity argument won't survive the preliminary hearing. And the expense reports? $340,000 in documented embezzlement. Snorts. If Garrett sues you, this becomes a countersuit. If he doesn't, it's leverage. I'll handle it in the room. Just be available by phone. You're sure you don't want me there? I've walked into harder rooms than my father's living room. Sandra pauses. Harold told me you'd say exactly that. I drive past Belle Meade on the way home. Harold's house, Keith's house now. The American flag still hangs on the porch. The workshop out back is dark. I'll be inside that house in 4 hours. And this time, nobody is going to ask me to leave. Saturday is here, and I'm about to walk into my grandfather's house, the house my father inherited, the house I was banned from for 13 years. And end this. Not with lawyers, not with arguments, with documentation and the truth. If you've ever been kicked out of a room and walked back in stronger, this part is for you. Stay with me. And if this story is keeping you up, share it with someone who's been through the same. 2 o'clock, Belle Meade. The house looks exactly the way it did when Harold was alive. White columns, wraparound porch, magnolias lining the drive. Keith keeps the exterior perfect. The inside is another story. The living room holds 10 people. Keith has taken the armchair by the fireplace, Harold's chair. Garrett stands beside the mantel, whiskey in hand, suit jacket still on. Brooke, Garrett's wife, sits on the love seat with her ankles crossed and her phone in her lap. Leanne is arranging tea on the sideboard, playing hostess the way she always does, making sure the performance of normalcy continues even when the house is on fire. Aunt June sits near the hallway. 2 uncles and a cousin fill the remaining chairs. They think I'm here to fold. I can read it in Garrett's posture. Loose, confident, the way a man stands when he thinks the outcome is already decided. Keith whispers to Leanne. She'll back down when she sees the legal filing. I walk through the front door. Alone.
No Sandra.
No Frank. Just me. A document folder under my arm. And a USB drive in my jacket pocket. Garrett straightens. No lawyer today? I don't need a lawyer to talk to my family. I set the folder on the coffee table. Don't sit. Standing is a choice. You control the room from your feet. Keith speaks first. Before you say anything, we've retained Hamilton and Ross. The challenge has been filed. We're contesting the LLC on grounds of diminished capacity. He says it like a verdict. I nod. I know. And I'm here to help you avoid the biggest mistake of your lives. Garrett's smirk fades a degree. Not enough. Not yet. I open the folder. Place 2 documents on the table side by side. This is the operating agreement for Weston Holdings LLC, filed in 2014. Harold Weston, managing member. Thalia Weston, successor managing member, notarized, legally binding. I slide it toward Garrett. He doesn't touch it. And these are 2 independent cognitive evaluations performed by Dr. Susan Park, board-certified neuropsychologist with no family connection. One from 2014, at the time of the LLC formation. One from 2022. Both confirm Harold had full mental capacity. I place them beside the operating agreement. 3 documents. The room is silent. The LLC is not part of Harold's estate. It doesn't go through probate. It cannot be challenged through inheritance law. It is a business contract. And I am the named successor. If you file a capacity challenge, you'll be fighting 2 clean evaluations from an independent physician. Sandra Reeves at Carleton, and Reeves tells me your case won't survive a preliminary hearing. Garrett's jaw works. Keith's eyes move from the documents to me and back. Harold was being manipulated. Garrett starts.
Garrett.
My voice is quiet.
Steady.
The same tone I used when a private was panicking during an ambush, and I needed him to hold a pressure bandage while I called for extraction. Stop. Because what I'm about to say next, you will not want the room to hear. The blood leaves his face. He knows. He doesn't know what I have.
But he knows there's something.
The room holds its breath. I reach into my jacket, pull out the USB drive, set it on the table beside the 3 documents. For items on a coffee table. The room feels like a courtroom. One chance, I say. Drop the challenge before I open this. Garrett stares at the USB drive the way a man stares at a locked door when he knows what's behind it. What's on that?
He asks.
His voice has lost its texture, flat, scraped clean. 3 years of Weston Realty expense reports, I say. 2022 through 2024. Snorts. Harold flagged every discrepancy. Vendor invoices for companies that don't exist. Travel claims that never happened. Dinners that were never served. $340,000, Garrett. Harold tracked every cent. The room doesn't gasp. It contracts. Keith turns to Garrett. You took money from the company? Those were legitimate operating $340,000? Keith's voice hits a register I've never heard. Disbelief cracking through decades of control. Brooke closes her eyes. Her hands grip her phone so tight the case creaks. I could hand this to the police, I say. Corporate embezzlement from a family business. That's a felony in Tennessee. But I'm not going to do that. Because Harold didn't want it. I let the silence work. Here's what I'm offering. Garrett drops the legal challenge. Resigns as CEO of Weston Realty. Repays the $340,000. Installment plan is fine. No one goes to court. No one goes to jail. We resolve this as a family, which is what Garrett said he wanted from the beginning. Garrett sits down, not in a chair, on the arm of the couch, like his legs gave up. His suit jacket bunches at the shoulders. Aunt June speaks from the hallway, quiet and clear. Harold told me last year Thalia is the only one who never took anything from me and still showed up every month. Now I understand what he meant.
Keith looks at Garrett, looks at me.
The man who controlled this family for 30 years has no script left.
Keith stands.
The room watches him the way employees watch a CEO who's about to speak at a layoff meeting. Braced for impact. Hoping for mercy. My father chose you, he says. The words come out like he's pulling splinters from under his fingernails. Over me. Over Garrett. He didn't choose me over anyone, I say. He chose me because I was the only one who showed up without an invoice. I visited him every month for 13 years. I never asked for $1. I never asked to be in the will. I just showed up. And that's what convinced him I could hold what he built. Keith's chin drops a fraction of an inch. For a man who's held his head high through every room he's ever walked into, it's an earthquake. I need time, he says. You've had 13 years, but I'll give you more. I turn to the room. Weston Holdings LLC is mine. That's not a request. It's documented, legal, and final. If anyone wants to review the paperwork, Sandra Reeves will provide copies. If anyone wants to challenge, read the capacity evaluations first. And if anyone in this family wants to talk, actually talk, I'm in Clarksville. My door is open. I pick up the folder, leave the USB drive on the table. Garrett stares at it. I walk to the front door. Behind me, I hear Brooke whisper, Garrett, we need to go home. Nobody follows me out. Aunt June is already on the porch waiting. She wraps her arms around me. A quick, strong hug. The kind Harold used to give. He's watching, she says. I nod. Get in my truck. Drive south on I-65 with the windows down, and Harold's last letter folded in my jacket pocket, right over my heart. Monday morning, Weston Holdings occupies a small office in a strip mall on Riverside Drive in Clarksville. Nothing on the door but a number and a mail slot. Harold ran it lean. 3 full-time employees, Frank part-time. I meet them around a folding table in what used to be a storage room. Frank introduces me. Martha Dunn, 49, Harold's bookkeeper for 15 years. She knows every line item in the portfolio. James Pelletier, 36, property manager for the commercial holdings. And Rosa Fuentes, 41, acquisitions analyst who sourced the land deals. They've been running on autopilot since Harold's health declined last year, following standing orders, waiting. Harold told us about you, Martha says. Talked about you every week. The army medic, the renovation company, the girl who showed up. I don't pretend to know how to manage $42 million. I know how to frame a wall, run a crew, keep a schedule, and make payroll. I tell them that. I need a CFO, interim, to audit everything and get me up to speed. I need Frank advising on operations. And I need all 3 of you to keep doing what Harold trusted you to do. James leans back. And what do you do? I learn. Fast. I show up every day. And I make the calls Harold would have made. Long-term thinking, community investment, no shortcuts.
Rosa smiles.
First one I've seen in this room. I also keep Ridgeline renovations running. 6 employees who depend on me. A project in progress. I don't shut down the small thing because the big thing arrived. Harold started with a truck and a borrowed foundation form. I started the same way. I'm not going to forget that. 2 weeks later, Garrett calls. His voice is stripped down. No negotiation tone, no rehearsed lines, just a man on the other end of a phone who ran out of moves. I'm dropping the challenge. Lawyers confirm the capacity evaluations are solid. There's no case. And the rest. Long exhale. I'm resigning from Weston Realty. Brooke made it a condition, full transparency, or she's gone. I'll repay the $340 over 3 years. She's helping me set up the schedule.
Good.
When the last payment clears, I'll destroy the drive. No copies. No record. He's quiet for a beat. Harold knew the whole time. He knew everything, Garrett. He chose not to destroy you. More silence. Then, quieter than I've ever heard my brother speak. I'm sorry about the homeless hotline comment. I don't need an apology. I need you to pay what you owe and treat people with basic respect.
Start with that. Okay.
And Garrett, Brooke sounds like a good person. Don't waste her. He almost laughs. Almost.
Yeah, she is.
We hang up. I sit in the holdings office staring at the folding table where 4 people are trying to continue what one man built over 40 years. Keith hasn't called, hasn't texted, hasn't sent a message through Leanne or June or anyone. He's disappeared into the Belmead house the way a man retreats into a bunker. Not because the fight is over, but because admitting he lost would require saying words his mouth has never formed. I know he won't call, and I've stopped waiting. You can leave a door open for someone without standing at the threshold. That's a boundary. That's also self-respect. Frank brings me a list. 4 names. People Harold trusted. People Garrett fired from Weston Realty during his efficiency restructuring 3 years ago. The real reason, they were loyal to Harold, not to Garrett. Anyone who might have noticed the expense irregularities had to go. Pete Calloway, 58, construction foreman, 22 years with Harold, fired via email on a Tuesday. I call him first. Harold told me there'd be a day like this, Pete says. I've been waiting 3 years. I'm sorry it took this long. Don't be. I'm just glad it's you. Martha Dunn had already been working for Holdings in the background, but Pete brings 2 more, a site supervisor and a procurement lead, both pushed out by Garrett. By Friday, Weston Holdings has 7 employees around that folding table. I buy a real conference table, nothing fancy, reclaimed pine, same species Harold used in his workshop. I run the first all-hands meeting. 7 faces looking at me, waiting. Here's what I know, I say. Harold built this company to last. He picked people who build things, not people who take things. That's why you're here. I don't know every answer yet, but I know how to show up, ask the right questions, and make decisions based on what's in front of me. Harold taught me that with sawdust and patience. Pete raises his coffee mug. To Harold. The room raises theirs. It's not a boardroom toast, it's a job site tradition, the kind where you drink bad coffee from a thermos and get back to work. Harold would have liked it. 3 months in, numbers don't lie even when families do. Garrett resigned from Weston Realty. The board hired an outside CEO, a woman named Karen Albrecht from a Knoxville brokerage. The company stabilized, but momentum stalled. Garrett's $700,000 inheritance is shrinking. $50,000 in legal fees to Hamilton and Ross for a challenge that never went to trial, and the first quarterly payment of the $340 repayment, $28,000 automatic transfer. Brooke made him set it up that way. She filed a post-nuptial agreement the same week.
Garrett is in therapy.
Keith spent $90,000 on legal consultations before anyone told him there was nothing to litigate. The Belmead house costs $15,000 a month in maintenance, taxes, and insurance. His $900,000 is a clock ticking down. Leanne got a job at a real estate office in Brentwood. Admin entry-level. First paycheck in 15 years. She told Aunt June it felt terrifying and good.
I could feel something about that.
I choose not to. At Weston Holdings, 3 development projects are on schedule. The CFO I hired, a woman named Elaine Mays who spent 20 years at a Nashville commercial REIT, finished her audit and said the same thing everyone keeps saying.
Harold built this right.
The foundation is solid. I'm enrolled in a 12-week executive operations course online. Not an MBA. A practical toolkit for someone who knows how to build a house but is learning how to build a company. Every Saturday morning, I'm still at a Ridgeline job site by 6 o'clock. Hard hat, tool belt, measuring tape in my back pocket. The crew doesn't call me CEO, they call me T. That's the name Harold used in his letters. For months after the reading, Leanne asks to meet. We sit in a coffee shop on Franklin Road, neutral ground. She's wearing flats instead of heels. No jewelry except her wedding ring. She orders a black coffee, which is new. She used to order lattes with 2 modifications and a complaint. I owe you an honest conversation, she says. Not an apology to her, just the truth. I wait. I knew what Keith was doing when he cut you off. I watched it happen. I told myself it was between him and you, that I shouldn't interfere. She wraps her hands around the mug. The truth is, every time Keith pushed you further away, my share of the family got bigger. I didn't plan it, but I didn't stop it either.
No, you didn't.
I'm working now. First time since Keith and I married, entry level. I answer phones and sort mail. She says it without self-pity, just fact. Keith hasn't left the house in 3 weeks. He sits in Harold's study all day, doesn't eat much, doesn't talk. I can't help him, Leanne. He has to want to help himself. I know. She takes a sip. If I need a reference for another job, eventually would you write one?
The question surprises me.
Not because she asked, because it took courage. Yes, I say. Not because I forgot what happened, because I'm not going to turn into what this family tried to make me. She nods, stands, leaves a 5 on the table and walks out. It's not reconciliation. It's not forgiveness. But it's the first honest exchange I've had with a member of my father's household in 13 years. I'll take that. 5 months in. The first Snorts project I greenlit under my own authority, Harold's Crossing, 32 affordable housing units plus ground floor commercial space in Clarksville. The land was already in the holdings portfolio. Harold bought it in 2018. He had a note stapled to the deed. This is where we started. Build something people can actually live in. I'm standing on the lot at 7 a.m. on a Saturday. Hard hat, steel toes, a set of blueprints rolled under my arm. Pete Calloway walks the perimeter with me, pointing out the grade, the drainage angles, the best orientation for natural light. Harold wanted to do this 5 years ago, Pete says. Garrett said the margins were too thin. Harold shelved it. Harold's not shelved anymore. Pete kicks a dirt clot and grins. No, ma'am. We walk the entire lot. I mark the positions for the first foundations with orange spray paint. The same way Harold taught me when I was 16, the summer we poured the concrete pad for his workshop. Build from the ground up.
Get the foundation right.
Everything else follows. Frank drives up in his truck, stands at the edge of the lot with his arms crossed watching me mark the ground. Harold said you'd build something better than he did, Frank says. I'm starting to believe him. I look out across Clarksville. 3 blocks east, the Ridgeline shop. 5 blocks north, my apartment. This is the town that kept me when my family wouldn't. My grandfather built an empire. I'm building a neighborhood. Both start the same way, with someone who refuses to quit standing in the dirt at 7 o'clock in the morning deciding where the walls go. 6 months. Keith hasn't called, hasn't texted, hasn't sent a message through anyone. Aunt June tells me he's still in the Bellmead house, goes to the grocery store on Tuesdays, skips church, sits in Harold's study from morning to night. The room Harold used for planning, blueprints, ledgers, the old rotary phone he never replaced. June says Keith doesn't touch anything in the study. Just sits in Harold's chair and stares at the bookshelves where Harold kept his journals. I think I understand. Keith isn't grieving his father. He's grieving the version of himself that could have been different. The version that could have said, I'm proud of you, instead of, you're not my daughter. He sees Harold's life laid out in that room, and somewhere in those journals and old receipts, he sees the evidence that Harold loved me the entire time Keith was trying to erase me. That's the hardest thing a controlling man can face, proof that his control didn't work. I drive past Bellmead one evening. The study window glows warm against the dark brick. I slow down. For a second, I think about pulling into the driveway, knocking on the door, saying something, anything to close the gap. I don't stop. I learned something in Afghanistan that applies here. You cannot save someone who doesn't signal for help. You can leave the door open. You can make sure they know where you are. But you cannot carry a person out of a room they've chosen to sit in. Keith knows where I live. He knows my number. The door is open. I keep driving south on I-65 back to Clarksville, back to the foundation that's already being poured. 1 year later, Thanksgiving, but not at Belmead. I hosted at the Ridgeline shop. We pushed the workbenches against the walls and set up a long table made from leftover Harold's Crossing lumber. Rough sawn pine, sanded just enough to stop splinters, stained dark walnut, because that's what Harold would have chosen. String lights hang from the ceiling joists. The space heater hums in the corner. Mismatched chairs from Ridgeline storage. No china. Paper plates and real silverware, a compromise I'm comfortable with. The guest list: Frank, Martha, Pete, Rosa, James, my 6 Ridgeline employees, Aunt June, who brought a sweet potato pie and a bottle of bourbon. 13 people. None of them share my last name. All of them chose to be here. Then a truck pulls up outside. Not a truck I recognize. The door opens. Garrett steps out. Alone. He's holding a bottle of wine and standing at the shop entrance like a man who's not sure if the door is for him. I don't know if I'm welcome, he says. You're here, I say.
Come in.
I pull up an extra folding chair. Garrett sits between Frank and Pete, 2 men he fired 3 years ago. Nobody mentions it. Pete hands him a plate. Frank pours him coffee. You know how to wire a junction box? Frank asks. No, Garrett says. Then you're on dish duty tonight. The table laughs. It's loud and rough and real. The sound of people who work with their hands and don't perform for each other. Keith doesn't come. Nobody mentions that either. But Aunt June squeezes my hand under the table and whispers, Harold would have loved this table.
She's right.
This table is smaller than the Weston dining room, louder, better. Every seat earned. After everyone leaves, I drive to Belmead, not to the house, to the workshop. The side gate is unlocked. Keith never comes out here. The workshop is Harold's. Always was, always will be. I pull the chain on the light. Single bulb, warm yellow. The room fills up. Cedar shavings on the floor. Hand planes on the pegboard. A lathe under a canvas tarp. The workbench, 8 feet of maple, worn smooth in the places where Harold's forearms rested for 40 years. I sit on a stool. The metal is cold. The shop smells the way he did. Cedar, linseed oil, coffee from the thermos he kept on the shelf. I'm talking to you now. Whoever's listening in a car, in bed, on a lunch break, wherever you are. I didn't tell this story to brag about $42 million. That money is a responsibility I carry every day. It's payroll for 13 people and a neighborhood being built from the ground up. I trade every dollar to have Harold sitting on the stool instead of me, showing me how to read the grain of a board so the stain goes on right. But he left me something money can't measure. He left me proof that someone believed in me when the rest of the world, when my own father decided I was nothing. 47 letters. 1 every month. 13 years. That's the real inheritance. If you're sitting somewhere right now, and the people who should love you have decided you're not enough, I'm not going to promise you a phone call worth $42 million. But I'll tell you what Harold taught me. Don't wait for a seat at their table. Build your own. The wood is right there. The tools are in your hands.
Start.
So here's where I landed. After the will reading, the speakerphone, the confrontation, and 6 months of silence from my father, I live by 3 rules. I wrote them on an index card and pinned it to the wall of my shop, right next to Harold's photograph.
1.
I don't ask permission to exist. If they don't invite me, I show up anyway. If they don't make room, I stand. My presence is not negotiable.
2.
I don't let anyone use my past, the enlistment, the estrangement, the years of being erased, as a reason to dismiss my future. That past made me. Every deployment, every renovation, every letter Harold sent to a soldier who wasn't supposed to exist anymore.
3.
I keep the door open, but I don't chase anyone through it. Keith knows where I am. If he walks through that door, I'll be here. But I will not wait at the threshold. Waiting is not strength. Patience is. There's a difference. Harold didn't leave me $42 million. He left me 47 letters, a workshop full of tools, and the unshakable knowledge that one believed I was worth betting everything on. The money is a tool. The belief is the inheritance. I put my hand flat on the workbench. The maple is cool and smooth, worn into a shallow valley where Harold's hands rested 10,000 times.
My palm fits exactly. Thank you, Grandpa.
I pull the chain. Light off. Slide the workshop door shut. Walk across the gravel to my truck. Highway 41 stretches south toward Clarksville, where the foundation of Harold's Crossing is curing in the November cold, and 13 people are waiting for Monday morning. I turn the key. The engine catches. My hands on the wheel are steady. That's my story. If it hit you somewhere real, if you've ever walked into a room where nobody wanted you and refused to leave, tell me about it in the comments and answer this. If someone handed you an envelope with a phone number and called it a joke, would you dial on speakerphone right there or wait? Type speakerphone or wait.